I won't give personal information to a fake mother. An unbelievable line came out of my son's wife's mouth, and I was speechless, my mind made up. Even when I asked, "Won't you regret this?" she replied with a mocking tone, "No way." Well, there's nothing I can do. I'm not a weak woman who cowers at words. You've crossed a line you shouldn't have. My name is Mariah, and I'm about to turn 60. I lost my husband and raised 2 children with all my might. Fortunately, I've loved Japanese culture since I was young, and that led me to pursue the path of calligraphy. I became a licensed instructor in Japan and was able to support my family with my beloved calligraphy work. Life is unpredictable, so the 3 of us lived in a small apartment without luxury, practiced frugal living, and saved money every month. My eldest son, Simon, was an easy child when he was young, but as he grew older, I felt his emotional weakness. My daughter, Liddy, unlike her brother, grew into a spirited and lively girl. My hard-working daughter earned her tuition through part-time work without relying on me, graduated from college, got a job at her first-choice company, and is working enthusiastically. Simon was indecisive, and at 35, he still hadn't found a partner. I was worried, but being single for life is not uncommon these days. So I was careful not to pressure him about marriage. There are countless people who marry and become unhappy, so marriage does not necessarily equal happiness. Then, Simon brought his girlfriend home. My daughter and I were curious about what kind of girl she was, but we were taken aback because she was so different from what we had imagined. Of course, we shouldn't judge people by their appearance, but she seemed to weigh more than the 132-pound, slender Simon. Before Simon could introduce her, Gloriana said, "He kept saying he wanted me to meet his mom, so here I am today." Nice to meet you. Normally, one would be nervous in front of a partner's parents, but Gloriana was calm. Also, it's common sense to call him Simon in front of his parents, even if you usually call him this guy. Am I just old-fashioned? When I served tea and cake, Gloriana ate the strawberry shortcake in 2 seconds, chugged the tea, and said, "More, please." After some chit-chat, my daughter asked, "Gloriana, what do you do for a living?" "Call me sister." That's a bit. My daughter probably didn't want to call her sister, and I felt the same way. Is Simon planning to marry this woman? Work? I'm not working now. I had an annoying senior who nagged me, so I choked him from behind, and I got fired. A red card is too harsh, don't you think? I was astonished, but I needed to teach her common sense as a working adult. Times have changed, and there are laws that prevent easy dismissal, but violence in the workplace can be grounds for immediate termination. Then Gloriana glared at Simon with a smile and slapped his shoulder. "Hey, your mom took the side of my senior. You're just going to stay silent in her pinch?" My son looked troubled and said nothing. I was worried about the future. After that, Gloriana often came to our house to hang out. She would casually open our fridge and eat ice cream, drink cola, and munch on the table snacks. My daughter and I were dumbfounded, but we hesitated to complain, fearing it would come back to us 100-fold. Eventually, my son moved out and started living on his own. Was it Gloriana who told him to live alone? Certainly, for her, living alone would make it easier to meet than living with his family. One day, as I placed a sheet of paper on the table and picked up my brush, my daughter asked, "What's this month's quote?" I used to write an inspiring quote every month and hang it on the wall. I wrote all at once. "Be gentle as a spring breeze with people, and like a lion king against evil." Gloriana peeked in and exclaimed, "No way, that's incredibly good. You could be a pro, Mom." My daughter quickly glared at Gloriana with a scowl. "She is a pro. Are you like a Japanese teacher or something? She's a calligrapher. You know, calligraphy? She's an instructor. I know that much. It's calligraphy, right? I was pleased with my daughter's desire to show off that her mother was an important person, but Gloriana didn't seem to listen much. I was forced to do it a bit in elementary school for cultural exchange, but I hated it. The teachers were so picky about the strokes, I wanted to throw ink on their heads. Gloriana's handwriting is bad, so you should learn from Mom. I think my son meant it casually, but at that moment, Gloriana glared at him with devilish, scary eyes and scolded him in a low voice. If you say something stupid again, a dropkick won't be enough. Don't get so mad. Gloriana laughed loudly, looking at the ceiling while watching TV. To put it nicely, she was powerful and hardy. To put it badly, she lacked grace. No, she was unreasonable, rude, rough, and crude, and I couldn't see her as a suitable wife for my son. I wanted to throw ink on her head. Gloriana was also overly familiar with my daughter, Liddy. Liddy, you're so thin. Are you eating properly? Gloriana, have you ever thought about dieting? I was taken aback, but Gloriana continued the conversation with a smile. How old is Liddy? I'm 28. I'm 30. If you talk back to me like that, even though you're younger, I'll put you in a bulldogging headlock. Bulldog? Yeah, people often say I look like a bulldog. Are you picking a fight? She might have meant it as humor, but neither my daughter nor I found it funny. One day, I called Simon home alone, and the three of us had a serious talk. Brother, I'll be clear, I'm against your marriage to Gloriana. If that's what this is about, I'm leaving. This is important. I thought I could trust anyone Simon or Liddy brought home, but Gloriana is beyond unreasonable. That's not true, she has her good points. Brother, you can't say anything to Gloriana, can you? It's pathetic. I had intended to choose my words carefully, but Liddy was straightforward. If your girlfriend is rude to Mom, you should warn her, normally. You have to tell her to shut up if she complains. You don't know Gloriana, so you can say that. If I tell her to shut up, I'll be in the hospital in 2 seconds. I believe that a couple where the woman is stronger than the man is ideal, but Gloriana's strength is excessive. Marriage is not just a matter between two people. Both families become relatives. I had planned to treat Simon's wife like my own child, but honestly, I have 0% confidence in getting along with Gloriana. A heavy silence lingered until Simon suddenly stood up. What's this? Everyone's bad-mouthing Gloriana. Everyone? Does that mean your friends are against her too? Yeah, they're all terrible, saying things like that's not right, and just practice with her. I couldn't help but think that his friends were right. A marriage blessed by many, including family and friends, is desirable. I wanted my son to reconsider, but he kept defending Gloriana. You don't even try to see her good side, just badmouth her. I'm fed up. We're not badmouthing her. Her parents are kind. They welcome me warmly whenever I visit, treat me to expensive steaks, and even took me to a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Is that what you mean by kindness, brother? I was as astonished as Liddy, but my son ranted on. Compared to her house, being at home is painful. If all we can do is have depressing conversations like this, I won't come anymore. It seemed that Simon couldn't keep a secret from Gloriana, and he had told her that my daughter and I were against the marriage. Gloriana came storming into the house with my son. I never dreamed that both mother and daughter would be bad-mouthing me. We're not bad-mouthing you. You're not the ones getting married, so stop interfering. Her tone became rough, and I thought this must be her true nature. Gloriana started to pick on Simon too. "It's your fault for not speaking up properly." When Gloriana needed my child's body, I finally yelled, "Stop it!" People change when they meet someone of the opposite sex. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Did I make a mistake in raising my son? I don't remember spoiling him. The teenage and 20s are times to train the mind and body, so I didn't indulge him. If you grow up without knowing hardship when you're young and remain weak-hearted, you'll complain even in a privileged environment. A strong-hearted person can thrive even when adversity is a daily occurrence. I wanted to raise a strong child, but Simon is weak. Gloriana complained to Liddy and me one-sidedly and left Simon behind. When Liddy started blaming Simon, he lost his temper. "A guy who takes his mother's side when his mother and girlfriend fight is the worst, isn't he? That's not good." "That's not true." "You don't care about how I feel, caught in the middle." "Enough already." Simon left too, and we didn't see him for a while. Then one day, something I never imagined happened. A postcard in the mailbox. It was printed with "We got married," and there was a photo of Simon and Gloriana, smiling in arm. Had they finally married? I thought they must have had a ceremony just for the two of them and decided to at least send a congratulatory card as a parent. The postcard strangely didn't include the address of their new home. I called my son. When I talked to Simon, I learned that they hadn't held the ceremony just by themselves. He said they had a grand wedding with Gloriana's parents, relatives, friends, Simon's friends, and colleagues. I felt weak all over, and my knees began to tremble. "Do you realize what you've done? If you're going to lecture me, I'll hang up." Without letting me know, they held the ceremony without inviting any relatives from the groom's side. Images of my relatives flashed before me, and I felt sad. I can't explain why I didn't invite them to Simon's wedding, and I can't face them anymore. Didn't Gloriana's parents object, thinking it was too much? An unreasonable child from unreasonable parents. Something inside me began to crumble. Then Gloriana came on the phone. "Put your hands on your chest and think hard about why you weren't invited to the wedding. But I'll take the card. I want to bring wedding and moving gifts to your new home, so please tell me the address. I won't give personal information to a fake mother." An unbelievable line came from my son's wife's mouth, and I was speechless, my mind made up. Even when I asked, "Are you sure you won't regret this?" she replied with a mocking voice, "No way." Well, then, it can't be helped. I'm not a weak woman who will cower at being spoken to like this. Put my son on. If you're going to lecture, forget it. Put my son on now. When I yelled loudly, Gloriana yelled back, "Don't act tough on the phone. If you yell again, I'll headbutt you." "Hello? I have something important to talk about, so come home." "If it's depressing, I don't want to hear it. I have to give you the congratulatory card." "A card?" Hearing about the congratulatory card, my son said, "I'll come," and I felt even more pitiful. Since Simon might get angry and leave if he had to face Liddy's rapid-fire words, I talked to him alone. I wanted Simon and Liddy to become strong-minded people, so I didn't indulge them or allow selfishness during their teenage and 20s. Enough with the old stories, where's the gift? Since your father worked hard, I was able to save most of the money I earned from calligraphy. Simon's eyes sparkled as the conversation turned to money. I lived frugally and saved money, planning to surprise you with a large sum when you got married. Simon's smile grew, and he leaned forward. I saved $100,000 for you. My son's eyes widened in surprise, and he shouted with joy, $100,000? But you did something unthinkable by holding a wedding without telling your real mother.
What?
In my common sense, that's something that should never happen. So, you're no longer my son. You're a stranger. It would be rude to give a stranger such a large gift, so I decline. My son stood frozen with his mouth open for a few seconds, then burst into tears and ranted.
What are you talking about, stranger? Give me the $100,000.
My only child is my daughter, Liddy. Please leave.
Wait, Gloriana said she didn't want to invite you.
That's why you should only care about your new family. My firm attitude and cold voice left Simon flustered. The conversation is over. Please leave.
Stop talking like that. Are you saying you're cutting ties between parent and child?
Holding a wedding without telling me means you've already cut those ties, doesn't it?
No.
No matter what my son said, I wouldn't forgive him.
It's always been like this. Liddy, you always favor her.
I only have one child, so what do you mean by favoritism? Simon ran out of the house, crying and screaming. As planned, I moved from the apartment to a newly built house and lived comfortably with Liddy. Without meeting Gloriana, there was no stress. However, one day when I returned from shopping, Simon was in front of the house. I was surprised, moving to such a fine house. It looks sturdy and earthquake-resistant. Did you follow me? Please stop with the formal language. Give me the $100,000. It's not fair to favor only your sister. I have nothing to say to a stranger like you. Please leave. Then Liddy came home. Brother, you brought this on yourself. Reflect on it a little. Not that I'll forgive you even if you do. You plan to take $200,000, including my share? You're 35 and still expecting money from your parents. Don't you get it? Liddy's words were harsh. I intervened, fearing Simon might get angry. You chose this path. You chose your wife over your mother and sister. Holding a wedding in silence means just that. As Simon hung his head, unable to argue, a taxi pulled up, and Gloriana got out, shouting,
I wasn't invited, but I came. I thought you were being manipulated by your toxic mother and sister.
Gloriana ranted at Liddy and me like a machine gun.
Moving without telling your family? That's unbelievable.
Family? I looked back, then at Gloriana and Simon again. Who's talking about whose family?
Oh, you're going that way? Turning around dramatically to say you're talking to the wall, not me? You've watched too many movies. But I don't mind that kind of timing.
You said it. You called me a fake mother. So, I have no intention of giving wedding or moving gifts to a fake son and a fake daughter. Nitpicking, huh? If you nitpick, I'll counter with a neck chop before a dragon screw. You won't catch me with wordplay. I couldn't hold back and yelled.
Speak seriously when talking about important matters.
I warned you about yelling, or are you less intelligent than a crow? I'll call the police. Hearing the word police, Gloriana seemed a bit frightened but didn't give up. Anyway, we'll take the $100,000. With that, Simon and Gloriana left. I was disappointed by their desire for the $100,000, not because they wanted to keep family ties. It's a common plot in dramas, where the mother eventually gives in to emotion and hands over the money to her son. But that would never be for my son's benefit. If one goes astray, family should help, but if the spoiled thinking isn't cured, the same mistakes will surely be repeated. I had a strong resolve not to give even a single dollar. I want to treat good citizens with the gentleness and freshness of a spring breeze. But against evil, a spring breeze won't protect those dear to me. Against evil, against enemies, I must face them like a lion. My policy is to respond sincerely to sincere people, but to respond with strength to arrogant ones. The boomerang effect is scary. Given her attitude, Gloriana may have hurt many people in her life. Gloriana's parents seem to be on the brink of divorce. My son informed me, but it's none of our business. Gloriana's father, who seems to be 60, my age, had an affair with a woman 20 years younger. He had an inappropriate relationship with a female employee for years, and it seems his wife found out. Gloriana and her father argued during a marital fight, and her father ended up in the hospital. I was surprised that Simon's previous words were not a metaphor. She really did hit him. One night, Simon came crying. "What do you need?" "I apologize for everything so far. Please help me." "Help with what?" Despite it being night, Simon raised his voice.
Family helps each other when in trouble, right?
"Your voice is loud. It's a nuisance to the neighbors." Sure enough, a neighbor was looking out the window, so I reluctantly let Simon in.
Gloriana and my father were arguing, and when my father slapped Gloriana, she unbelievably countered with a German suplex.
"German?"
You wouldn't think Gloriana could do such a vivid bridge with that body, normally.
Liddy slammed the table with a bang, angry.
Speak seriously when you're asking for something serious. I'm not joking, I'm just flustered.
I don't know much about wrestling, so I don't know what a German suplex is, but I understood that Simon was confused.
My father hit the back of his head and is now hospitalized. He's lying about falling down the stairs, but the doctor is suspicious.
You have to tell the doctor this is an assault case.
Please stop.
After holding his head in his hands, my son spoke softly.
If my father can't work, our finances will be tight. Neither my mother nor Gloriana work, and my meager salary can't support us.
Then you must get Gloriana to work quickly. Though I worry if any company would hire her. Even with the sarcasm towards Gloriana, Simon didn't get angry.
Mom, I don't need $100,000. Just give me $10,000, please.
It's impossible. When I answered without hesitation, Simon said.
Understood. I'll bring Gloriana, and she'll apologize.
That won't happen.
I'll make her apologize.
If my son could make Gloriana apologize, I thought I might reconsider, my parental feelings getting the better of me. The next day, Simon really brought Gloriana. Gloriana, probably acting, looked solemn.
Please forgive my rudeness until now.
Lies, did you think you were being rude? For a moment, Gloriana glared at Liddy but quickly hung her head.
Please help our family. I beg you.
I refuse. I answered immediately, and Simon's face turned pale.
Mom!
As Gloriana tried to kneel, I spoke first. It's useless to grovel on the floor. Ignoring Gloriana's trembling humiliation, I said. When dealing with someone who's lived for 60 years, it's important not to underestimate them without knowing what hardships they've been through. Gloriana looked up at me. Did I look like just a gentle calligraphy teacher to you?
Even if you claim to be a mafia woman, I won't be intimidated. Gloriana!
I smiled wryly. A mafia woman? What a lack of imagination. It's not about that. I'm a patient person, but once I decide not to forgive, I can be utterly cold-hearted. Understand?
Isn't family supposed to help each other in times of trouble?
Liddy shook her head in disbelief. Gloriana, you crossed a line you shouldn't have. Please leave. Realizing she wouldn't be forgiven, Gloriana lashed out at Simon.
It's your fault for having zero persuasiveness and credibility. It's your fault for not being patient. You promised to endure whatever was said.
Take it outside, you're unbearable.
Cold-hearted sister. You should have given her a pile driver on the concrete, not on the carpet.
Feeling threatened, Simon ran out of the house, and Gloriana chased after him. I didn't stop them. I heard my son's screams from outside, but I ignored them. Simon apparently divorced Gloriana. And Gloriana's parents also divorced. Truly, a family torn apart. My heart ached. If I laughed at others' tragedies, I wouldn't escape the boomerang effect either. My son came to the house again, but I spoke to him at the entrance and didn't let him in.
This is hard to say, but can I live here with you?
It's impossible. Simon hung his head at my immediate response. Indulging him now would be meaningless. After that, I heard nothing from Simon. Days like a storm continued, but now, both Liddy and I enjoy clear skies every day. One day, Liddy said she would bring her current boyfriend over, and I felt a pang of anxiety. If her boyfriend turned out to be another rude and unreasonable man, I would feel it was fate. However, the young man my daughter brought was sensible and decent. I breathed a sigh of relief. Margaret just passed away.
What?
The dumbfounded face of my husband Timothy, as he stood at the front door looking at me, has etched into my mind. He seemed unable to comprehend the sudden reality that our daughter, Margaret, had died.
What are you talking about? Stop it with the cruel jokes. It's not funny.
Timothy mocked me, drenched in the rain, as if he had any right to speak.
It's not a lie. What have you done? I'll take care of the funeral arrangements, so I'll be away from home for a while. Goodbye.
Seeing me tremble all over, Timothy finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation.
Is that true?
He recoiled. However, his reaction felt detached, as if it was someone else's problem, which only intensified my discomfort. My anger flared up within me as I turned back. I will never forgive him. I'll make sure he pays for putting me through this. My name is Rosie. I'm 38 and work at an advertising agency. My family consists of Timothy and our 8-year-old daughter, Margaret. We aren't wealthy, but we lead a comfortable life. That's partly because my job at the advertising agency pays well, and compared to my peers, I earn a significant salary. We never struggle for pocket money, and we've been able to save for Margaret's tuition. Even considering the living expenses and the mortgage, we managed to save some money each month. Timothy is aware of my high salary, which seemed to bruise his pride. A year ago, he started his own business as a freelancer in web development. He claimed to switch to freelancing due to the stagnant salary as an employee, but it's questionable how much one can earn freelancing. I opposed when he decided to quit his job. I thought it safer to continue working for a company and receive a full pension than to risk freelancing. But Timothy insisted on freelancing, and eventually, we followed his wish. Timothy, now a freelancer, works from home every day. Perhaps the dissatisfaction with his salary was just a facade, and he actually disliked dealing with annoying work relationships. Either way, our new lifestyle, with Timothy at home and me going to the office, was unfamiliar. Initially, Margaret was happy to have her father at home when she returned from school, but lately, she seemed discontent. Though she didn't say it, she probably felt constantly being watched. Despite being only 8, Margaret appeared more mature than her classmates. Thus, we were living without major issues, but I hadn't realized the emotional distance between us began when Timothy started working from home. When Timothy shifted to working from home, I asked him if he could help with some household chores. Could you help with the chores like cleaning and laundry? Just what you can manage. I'll still handle the cooking.
Why should I have to do the housework?
Because you have more free time and are at home more. Of course, when you're tired, it's okay. Just what you can manage.
Free time? Freelancing isn't leisurely. It's actually quite tough. I can't be expected to do all that as well.
What a response. Timothy outright rejected my modest proposal without giving it any thought. Indeed, I understand that freelancing can be very busy and mentally taxing. That's why I was against the switch in the first place. But household responsibilities should belong to no one person, especially since we both worked and I had been handling all the chores. I thought it fair to share some of the burden. But I'm working too. I wish we could share these tasks equally.
You've been managing the housework on your own so far, right? Don't start complaining now.
Timothy, convinced he was in the right, wouldn't listen. So, the household chores remained my responsibility. Not that I thought freelancing meant less busyness, but when I got home late, Timothy was invariably lounging in front of the TV or staring intently at his mobile phone.
Is dinner ready yet?
He would ask arrogantly, as if entitled, which was infuriating. Moreover, now that he was home more, perhaps he became more aware of the dirt and clutter around the house. Daily, he would complain.
Clean more thoroughly.
Began to give instructions.
If it bothers you that much, why don't you clean it up? I'm only human, I can't catch everything. Are you talking back to me? Clean up your own mess.
It's our family's home, so it's not like I'm the only one making a mess. Yet, Timothy, with his inexplicable arguments, left me utterly astounded. Margaret was quietly listening to our conversation from afar. Dad is always looking at his mobile phone. I want to go out as a family on my days off, but Dad says it's impossible because he's busy with his phone. One Sunday morning, while I was making breakfast, Margaret came and told me this. Last night, she had asked Timothy to go out and play, but he refused while looking at his mobile phone. Is that so? But it's true. He's always on his phone.
Even before Mommy gets home from work. Sometimes he's on the phone with someone.
On the phone?
Yeah. He talks like they're really close. I always hear a woman's voice. That means...
From Margaret's description, it didn't seem like Timothy was talking to a business contact. It could be a coworker he's working with, but considering he's freelancing, who could he be talking to so often? It might be part of his work that I'm not aware of, like delegating some tasks to someone else, but the mention of a woman's voice snagged at me. Could he be having an affair? It's not out of the question. He only started working from home a few months ago and should have more free time than when he was working at the office. Trying not to let Margaret see how shaken I was, I hurriedly finished making breakfast. Months passed, and it had been a year since Timothy became a freelancer. He still wouldn't help with any household chores. On the contrary, he began spending all his weekends away from home.
There are no weekends off for a freelancer. I've got work.
He would leave the house, often dressed more stylishly than usual, with accessories and cologne he didn't usually wear. Despite my suspicions, I felt resigned, knowing that making accusations of infidelity without proof would only lead to him talking his way out of it. Moreover, even if Timothy was cheating, I wasn't sure what I should do. Intellectually, I knew leaving him would be best, but considering Margaret, I couldn't easily make that decision. Was I prepared to take her father away from her? It was a question that tormented me daily. However, our life was about to reach a turning point. On Monday morning, as I was getting ready to leave for work, Margaret didn't wake up as usual, and I was worried she would be late for school.
Margaret, it's morning. You need to wake up or you'll be late for school.
When I went to wake her up, she seemed unwell. Rushing over, I placed my hand on her forehead. You're hot. Margaret, you have a fever. Yeah. I brought a thermometer, and it read 102 degrees.
What should I do? I have an important meeting today and can't take off work.
As I panicked, Timothy came in.
What's going on? Timothy, Margaret has a high fever. I can't skip work today. Maybe we should call a home health aide.
A home health aide?
No need for that. I'll take care of her. What? Just let her rest quietly, right? I can make some oatmeal. It'll be fine.
I was deeply surprised to hear Timothy offer to take care of Margaret, who had a high fever. He had never involved himself in household or childcare duties before. It was hard to believe, but with the situation being urgent, I decided to trust Timothy and ask for his help. Then, please take care of her. There's fruit in the fridge if she feels like eating.
Got it.
Relieved to hear Timothy's reassuring response, I hurriedly got ready and rushed out of the house. I was worried about Margaret, but getting to work on time was my top priority. I caught the train, and by the time I reached my station, the sky had darkened and it had started to rain. Fortunately, I had a foldable umbrella, so I made it to the office without getting wet. The meeting started as scheduled in the afternoon, but I couldn't stop thinking about Margaret during it. At that moment, the building was shaking from the fierce rain and strong wind outside, causing a stir around me. Did the news mention a hurricane approaching? I had been too busy lately to pay much attention to the weather forecast, but I remember the news about the hurricane being quite persistent. Throughout the meeting, it seemed like everyone, including myself, was concerned about the hurricane's impact, frequently looking outside. By 7 p.m., when I finally finished work and headed home, the rain from the hurricane had intensified, and several trains had stopped. The train I was supposed to take was delayed, and the platform was crowded with people. Worried about Margaret, who had a high fever, I couldn't wait on the platform any longer. I rushed through the ticket gate to look for a cab. Many people were waiting for a cab, so I had to wait quite a while, but after 30 minutes, I managed to get one. After a 30-minute drive asking the driver to hurry, I got out of the cab in front of my house and was speechless at the scene before me.
Margaret!
Margaret was lying collapsed in front of the entrance. I immediately picked up Margaret, who was soaking wet.
Margaret, are you okay? What happened?
Dad has. Seeing my face seemed to reassure her, and after saying Dad has, Margaret lost her strength and went limp. She still had a high fever, and despite being wet from the rain, her body was hot. I turned back to the cab I had just arrived in and knocked on the driver's window.
Excuse me. I'm getting back in. Please take us to the hospital.
Seeing the urgency in my expression and the unwell Margaret in my arms, the driver,
yes,
opened the door for us. I hurried back into the cab. We headed to the nearest hospital as fast as possible.
Margaret, Margaret!
During the ride, I kept calling out to Margaret, fearing the worst. Although I was eager to know why Margaret had collapsed in front of the door, saving her life was the most important thing at that moment. Despite the hurricane, the cab struggled but eventually made it to the hospital. Be careful on your way back. It's still rough out there.
Yes, thank you.
The kind driver dropped us off, and I rushed Margaret into the hospital. Despite the crowded hospital, the receptionist quickly realized the emergency and expedited our visit to the doctor. 30 minutes later, the doctor attended to Margaret, explaining she wasn't fully conscious due to a high fever but should be fine once the fever subsides, as there were no external injuries. However, considering she had been outside in the rain with a high fever for hours, Margaret was immediately admitted. Margaret, I'm sorry. Get well soon.
Rosie, I'll take good care of her, so you should rest for today. Thank you.
After spending 5 hours at the hospital watching Margaret's sleeping face in pain, a nurse advised me to go home. Though I wanted to stay by Margaret's side, I was physically and emotionally exhausted from work and the day's events. I decided to leave her in the nurse's care and head home. I was certain Timothy was to blame for Margaret's condition. Her last words before losing consciousness, "Dad has," were proof enough. It was unimaginable for Margaret to go outside on her own, especially during a hurricane. The more I thought about it, the less I could understand or forgive Timothy's actions. On my way home, I pondered what to say to Timothy. If he learned Margaret was safe, he might continue his irresponsible behavior. I couldn't let that happen. Timothy needed to deeply reflect on his actions. Resolved, I headed home. Arriving home in the rain, I found Timothy nonchalantly using his mobile phone. Noticing my return, he looked up and stared at me. "How's Margaret?" "She was sleeping in the entrance, right? She said she wanted to play outside. I told her not to, but she wouldn't listen." Hearing Timothy speak so casually infuriated me. "Margaret went outside by herself, you say?" Timothy was the one who threw her out. I clenched my fist tightly and answered,
"Margaret just passed away." "What?"
The dumbfounded face of Timothy, standing at the front door looking at me, was sealed into my memory. He seemed unable to comprehend the sudden reality that Margaret had died.
What are you talking about? Stop with the cruel jokes. That's not funny.
Timothy mocked me, drenched in the rain, as if he had any right to speak.
It's not a lie. What have you done? I'll handle the funeral arrangements, so I'll be away from home for a while. Goodbye.
Seeing me tremble all over, Timothy finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation.
Is that true?
He recoiled. However, his reaction felt detached, as if it was someone else's problem, which only intensified my discomfort. My anger flared up within me as I turned back. I will never forgive him. I'll make sure he pays for putting me through this. I stormed out of the house and headed straight to a hotel. I managed to find an available hotel and decided to live there for a while. The expense was painful, but that was the least of my concerns at the moment. I wanted revenge on Timothy. If he showed any remorse or changed after hearing about Margaret's death, I might consider my actions. But seeing no calls or messages from Timothy that day made it clear he didn't care about Margaret's fate. This only fueled my anger, and I started planning a way to seriously teach Timothy a lesson. The next morning, I went straight to the hospital after waking up. I had received a call that Margaret had regained consciousness.
Margaret! Are you okay?
Mommy. Yeah, I'm fine now. The fever's gone down.
That's great.
I hugged Margaret and stroked her head. Margaret giggled, tickled. Immersed in the joy of Margaret's return, I eventually asked her about the truth. Margaret, what happened yesterday?
Dad kicked me out. I thought so.
He said, "You're in the way, get out," as a woman came in and they started chatting happily.
A woman? What did she look like?
I didn't see her well, but she was young. She had bright red nails and wore thin shoes. I couldn't believe this. Timothy was indeed having an affair. On a day when his daughter had a high fever, he let his mistress Sandra into the house and even kicked out his daughter. Unbelievable. I couldn't understand how he could do something so terrible. That happened, huh? I'm sorry, Margaret. You must have been scared.
But I was happy because you saved me, Mommy.
Margaret. It was unforgivable for him to put Margaret through this and think he could be happy with Sandra. I felt a surge of anger welling up inside me. By the way, Dad said he's inviting that woman over again next Sunday.
Next Sunday? That's the day I'm supposed to go on a company trip.
He was planning to enjoy a pleasant day with Sandra while I was away. Disgusted but now resolute.
Thank you. That's good to know.
I stroked Margaret's back, swearing to myself that I would get back at Timothy. I decided to take Margaret home with me next Sunday. I informed my company that I couldn't participate in the trip due to a family matter. Margaret had been discharged from the hospital soon after and was staying with me at the hotel. Returning home after a long time, the entrance felt like it belonged to someone else's house.
We're home.
We're home. As Margaret and I entered normally, sure enough, there were unfamiliar high heels in the entrance. Just as Margaret had said, imagining Timothy and Sandra enjoying themselves in the back room filled me with disgust. Timothy wasn't in the living room, so we headed to the bedroom. I worried the scene might be too much for Margaret, but the room was quiet. After a moment, we heard Timothy's voice from the bedroom.
It worked out well. With Margaret gone, it's easier to break up.
How could you say that about your daughter? But yes, I guess I'm lucky. Hearing them talk about Margaret's death as convenient and lucky made me feel dizzy. It was clear now. Timothy had not reflected at all. Then it was just time to confront the situation head-on.
Excuse us, may we come in?
Upon opening the door and seeing Margaret and me, the two inside were visibly shocked.
Why are you here today? You said you were going on a company trip. And why is Margaret here? Wait a minute. I thought your daughter was dead.
It's no wonder they panicked, seeing Margaret, whom they believed to be dead. I explained calmly.
The news of her death was a lie. I'm sorry. I wanted to see your reaction. To see if you'd show any remorse. But instead, you seemed relieved Margaret was gone. That's not normal behavior. A lie? So you were just lying? Give me back the worry I felt for her.
Timothy's claim of worry was laughable. I sighed deeply.
Don't joke with me. You're the one who kicked Margaret out of the house, aren't you? That's not true. Margaret left on her own. I was kicked out by Dad. He said I was in the way because he wanted to be with that woman.
Margaret immediately spoke the truth, turning Timothy pale.
Timothy, as a father, or even as a human being, what you did is despicable. She could have died from her condition. Was being with that woman so important to you?
I pointed at Sandra, who was standing beside Timothy, speechless at our confrontation.
Calling her a mistress is a disgrace. She's someone from work.
Work?
But you quit your job to freelance. Damn.
Timothy's attempt to lie on the spot only ended up proving that Sandra was indeed his mistress.
Well, I didn't need to ask you to know. Here, evidence of the affair. Private investigators are amazing. They gathered all this evidence in just a week.
I thrust a large envelope under Timothy's nose. After hearing about Timothy's affair from Margaret, I had started an investigation into his infidelity. I never expected to gather evidence so quickly. Timothy was a poor liar. He hesitantly opened the envelope and dropped a bundle of photos proving his affair onto the floor.
How could you? Is trapping someone like this and exposing them fun for you?
Even now, Timothy tried to paint me as the villain, despite his own actions being to blame. I pulled out the divorce papers from my bag and presented them to Timothy.
Unfair? Who's really being unfair here? There's no value in staying with someone who can't even distinguish right from wrong. Let's get a divorce.
Timothy stared at the divorce papers, wide-eyed. If he truly wanted to be with Sandra, he should quietly accept the divorce.
You'll be paying compensation and child support, of course. And you, I'll be seeking damages from you too. Be prepared.
I looked at Sandra when I said, "And you?"
Why should I pay? I didn't know about any of this. What do you mean, why should I pay? By having an affair, you've helped break a family. You're responsible. I don't have money.
Sandra was distressed, running her fingers through her hair. Margaret and I watched her with detached interest. Though Margaret was still young, she seemed to grasp the concept of compensation, holding my hand tightly.
If you don't have it, find it. You're in love, right? You should be able to overcome such a hurdle together. Don't ever show your faces to me or Margaret again. You can have this house, but you're taking over the mortgage payments.
Timothy attempted to protest.
Wait a second.
But I ignored him, taking Margaret's hand. Losing a father might be tough for her, but I had no regrets. I couldn't risk putting Margaret in danger again.
Margaret, let's do our best together from now on. Yeah.
Margaret smiled happily, and I felt reassured. Margaret and I went back to my parents' house to stay for a while. My parents were furious upon learning that Timothy had cheated and put Margaret through such an ordeal, almost ready to confront him physically. I managed to calm them down, averting further trouble.
You're always welcome to stay at home.
Thank you. Both my mother and father were delighted to welcome us, and Margaret was happy to be with her beloved grandparents. It was a relief to see that we wouldn't have any problems for a while. As for Timothy, I had a lawyer demand compensation and child support, successfully securing a lump sum payment from him. I also made sure to extract compensation from Sandra. It's hard to imagine Timothy had tens of thousands in savings, so he probably had to borrow the money. On top of that, he still had to pay off the remaining mortgage, so no doubt, Timothy is in a dire financial situation without any leeway. A colleague at my company, who went to high school with Timothy, updated me on his recent situation. Apparently, he ended up breaking up with Sandra. Timothy had confidently told Sandra he had money, but when the truth came out that things were different, they broke up. Given that Timothy's income had halved compared to his days as a salaried worker, it was inevitable. Now, he's hustling with freelance work and various part-time jobs. Having lost me, Margaret, and Sandra, Timothy is left to live a modest life, repaying his debts. It's all his responsibility. He should struggle and regret.
Mommy, today at school, we made presents for Granny and Gramps for the elderly day.
Is that so? Let's give them the presents later then.
Yeah.
Seeing Margaret thrive even without Timothy made me feel happy. Moving forward, I'll continue at our own pace, together with Margaret.